Hi everyone, I am Jabu, a third-year CS PhD student at Virginia Tech. I am glad to share with you our works on quadratic residual networks, a new class of neural networks for solving forward and inverse problems in physics involving PDEs. Let's start with a simple experiment. The figure shows an example of the neural networks fitting high-frequency signal. We observed that conventional neural networks require a lot of parameters and training epochs to fit a complicated function. This motivates us to ask the question, can we develop a neural network architecture with high capacity at every layer that can approximate complex functions with less parameters than plain DNNs? Thus, here we propose the quadratic residual networks, or QRES, by adding quadratic functions into the weighted sum at every layer before applying activation functions. The operations of the plain DNN layer can be expressed by the diagram and equation. And a QRES requires an additional weight matrix and an additive product. The additional non-linearity comes from learning the quadratic residuals. Note that even with linear activation function, the QRES can maintain a certain level of non-linearity similar to a polynomial regression. We find that a QRES network with the same number of parameters show faster convergence speed for approximating high frequencies. Besides, we see that the QRES also show the spectral bias phenomenon in the training, which is a very common pattern in machine learning that the models always learn low frequency first and a high frequency later. This is further supported by the spectral analysis. It implies the compatibility of the QRES using early stopping as a regularization technique. Thus, we are able to control the level of details learned by the network. From the previous example, we showed that quadratic residuals can help learn high frequency patterns but also result in higher complexity of an overall model. This can be critical when training data is limited. The QRES can be susceptible to picking noisy patterns at high-frequency information. Thus, the QRES is best suited for applications with sufficient supervision and require learning high-frequency information efficiently. Unfortunately, the training data is often very limited. The figure shows a simple experiment of training a neural network to fit a sine function with very limited data points. The model can only predict the low-frequency hypothesis at its best. On the other hand, assuming we know some prior information about a target function, for example, the target function is a sine wave and we know its frequency and amplitude. Such information is very common in real-world scenarios when certain properties of the target function are given by physical rules. Then we can easily formulate above information as a PDE and add a physics-guided loss accordingly. This is called physics-guided machine learning by leveraging another form of supervision other than data. As the figure shows, it allows models to learn information with a higher granularity and less prone to overfit. Fortunately, learning from PDEs is made possible by Mazia et al. In their works about physics-informed neural networks, leveraging the analytical differentiation tools from the autograph package. The PINs use deep neural networks as the backbone network, which can solve a variety of forward and inverse physical problems involving PDEs. We noticed that a solution to physical PDEs often contain rich amount of high frequencies, for example in turbulence flows. And it makes us wonder, can we use QRES as the alternative backbone network in the PIN framework? To verify the effectiveness of the QRES networks, we replaced the backbone network of the original PIN with 3 different architectures, including QRES, ISC, and QSC. Note that the only difference among these baselines are the backbone networks, while the rest remains the same. In some experiments, we examined the idea of adding additional term outside the activation function. The 2 additional baselines are IIC and QSC, namely identity shortcut and quadratic shortcut, which is similar to the idea of the ResNet. The operations are shown in the diagram and the equations at the bottom. For experiments, we follow the same PDE configurations and problem settings as the original PIN papers, which include a wide range of forward and inverse problems. For more details, please refer to the original papers. Before going into details, let's start with an overview of the results. Using tools from algebraic geometry, we first theoretically show that a QRES is almost exponentially more parameter efficient than plain DNNs. By using experiments over a set of benchmark PDE problems, we show that QRES is more accurate, more parameter efficient, and converges faster than PNNs. The table shows the results of the forward problems involving the Schrödinger and Allen-Kane equations. When trained with the same number of epochs, the QRES can be more accurate even with less number of parameters. On the other hand, we conducted more comprehensive experiments on the inverse problems involving more PDEs, covering the cases where the QRES have either the same or the less number of parameters or training epochs. We showed that the QRES is generally more accurate, parameter efficient, and converges faster. To further support the theoretical results of the parameter efficiency of the QRES, we evaluated the PINs and QRES with 4 different depths and 7 different widths. In other words, in total 28 experiments for each model. The figures show that the QRES has lower mean and standard deviation of the errors at varying depth and width. We also compared with other network architectures including ISC, QSC, and adaptive activation PINs. The table shows that, no matter with the same or half the number of parameters, the QRES produced more accurate predictions. Since the training loss can be a good characterization to the convergence of the PINs, we plot the training loss curves to compare the convergence speeds. In all the experiments, we see that QRES consistently converged much faster than other baselines. In order to better understand the advantages of the QRES exhibited in our experiments, we plot error maps of each model's predictions with respect to the ground truth. We select one of the most difficult tasks in our experiment, where the model is expected to predict the 2D pressure field given the flow velocities in the x and y directions using the Navier-Stokes equations. We can see that the most errors came from the area where the pressure changes rapidly, which contains more high-frequency information. For the rest of the field, the 2 models performed similarly. Therefore, by only looking at the overall RMSE shown on the title of each plot, both models performed really good. However, this can be misleading if we do not plot the error maps. We can see that the PIN failed to digest the high error region in the high-frequency area, while on the other hand, the QRES performs much better in the region that contains high-frequency patterns. This difference can be critical when we try to apply the PIN framework to applications like turbulence flows, where the high-frequency patterns can be dominating in the target solution, leading to a huge gap in performance between the PINs and QRES. As a conclusion, our works suggest that QRES are better than the conventional deep neural networks in terms of parameter efficiency, convergence speed, and accuracy, especially on learning high-frequency patterns. Using QRES as an example, we provide important insight to the field that physics-guided machine learning can benefit from more non-linearity in the network, which can be a potential direction for future research. Moreover, the remarkable advantage of the QRES in learning high frequencies further suggests the promising potentials of the QRES networks in a broader range of machine learning applications. In the end, I would like to thank my advisor Dr. Anuj Karpatne for precious advice and helps on this work. And I also want to thank the National Science Foundation for the above fundings that make this work possible.